Hello and welcome to the very new initiative of Drishti IAS, the In-Depth series. Whatever is just superficial to your eyes, we bring it to you in depth. So today we are going to discuss a very interesting topic, that is content moderation on Wikipedia. Now, as we all know it, that recently Arshdeep Singh's Wikipedia page was distorted after he dropped a catch against Pakistan. Arshdeep Singh is a cricketer who is trolled through Wikipedia. Now, the Indian government has summoned Wikimedia Foundation officials to take a note of it. So that is the entire matter. Let us begin with the various topics that we are going to see under the chaos around Wikipedia. What is Wikipedia? Apart from that, how does it function? Many of you see it as an authentic source of information. I tell you, it is not. Apart from that, because it works on the open source software, we will discuss that as well. The pros and cons, who is accountable if any information distortion occurs? What is the grievance redressal? What can India do in case of grievance? And of course, earlier incidents, if any, and question. From the perspective of GS Mains Paper 2 and preliminary facts, understand this entire segment is very important. Let us move ahead and first of all, look at this news piece. The misleading information which has been added into the Wikipedia page of Arshdeep Singh is Khalistani. Because he dropped a catch, the trolls used Wikipedia to target him. Ministry of Information Technology says that any intermediary who is working in India, who is operating in India and hosting content should know that misleading information should not be a free-flowing norm. Let us move on and first of all understand what is Wikipedia. As I told you, in depth, we bring it from the depth. Now, in 1996, Jimmy Wales, he wanted to establish Bomis Inc. After that, he founded Nupedia. That was in 2000. And it is a free online encyclopedia. That means free information with respect to anything could be accessed here. Larry Sanger was made the editor-in-chief. It also had an advisory board of experts. But not many articles were hosted in Nupedia by 2001. So there comes an idea by Larry Sanger. He says that let's make it an open source encyclopedia based on wiki software. Okay. So open source software, that means anybody can generate content freely. It's a democratization of intellect. And wiki software means a software that is collaborative in nature. So this was the basic idea. Now, Nupedia was still there, but it was relaunched as an independent website after a few days later as Wikipedia. So when Wikipedia came into the fore, Nupedia was deleted. The articles from Nupedia was put into Wikipedia. And now Wikipedia is a free, that means anyone can make changes, internet-based encyclopedia available online. It was started in 2001 and it works as an open source management style. And it is overseen by the non-profit California-based organization Wikimedia Foundation. In the first year, the Wikipedia page expanded to some 20,000 articles in 18 languages. These languages included French, German, Polish, Dutch, Hebrew, Chinese, and Esperanto. By 2006, what happened that the English language version of Wikipedia had more than 1 million articles. Now, as we see the current situation, currently the English Wikipedia alone has over 60 lakh above articles of any length. Combined Wikipedias for all other languages include 29 billion words and 55 million articles in 309 languages. Now, Wikipedia, you can understand from here, this is Wikipedia, this is the user who is writing the content or content creator, and these are the consumers. Okay, so users use Wikipedia as a platform to generate content and we consume it. Okay, if we are not generating, then we are consumers. We can be users and consumers at the same time. So Wikipedia is basically an intermediary. All right, it is not responsible for the content that has been created on Wikipedia, but it is providing a platform for users to generate content and then consumers to consume the content. Moving ahead, As I said, model of functioning is important for us to know. Now, according to Wikipedia itself, it describes itself as a multilingual, free online encyclopedia. All right, knowledge-based hosting this Wikipedia does. Written and maintained by a community of volunteers. That means whoever wants to generate content is a part of the group of volunteer. Through open collaboration, that means it can be a collaborative effort. Many people can write it together on a page. And a wiki-based editing system, again, the same thing. What I meant earlier, it's a collaborative software. All of Wikipedia's encyclopedia content is user-generated. Very importantly, this is what Wikipedia says about itself. Now, as we move on, let us know about what is open source software. Earlier, I told you about open source software. Basically, it's a software with source code that anyone can inspect, modify, and enhance. Now, certain source codes which are restricted in nature, they are known to only few users. Those are not open source softwares. If it's open to everyone, it is editable, then what happens? It becomes an open source software. Features of open source software goes from decentralization, that information is not coming from one area only, but many people are under it. So it is decentralization of information. That is a good thing. Apart from, of course, the many bad things that we saw. Good thing is that because of decentralization, intellectual democratization also happened. People felt empowered that, okay, we can also put information on the internet and it is validated by other people. Wikipedia is an authentic source according to them. Collaborative, that means many users can come together and edit one page only. It can be collaborated as well. Basically, the philosophy is based on intellectual freedom. As the general encyclopedias that we see, pre-authorized authors can only go and write there. The content is written by pre-authorized authors who might have done a lot of research to bring content to you. But Wikipedia is not like that. So there is intellectual freedom. Core principles of it are transparency, collaboration, delivery, inclusion, and community. Transparency is there. Who is editing what is known to the Wikimedia Foundation? Collaboration, of course, as I have reiterated many times. Delivery. As soon as somebody dies, we see that editors at the instance, they edit the date. We have seen that. So that is time efficiency. Inclusion and community, as volunteers are there, so many forms of inclusivity is there, and collaboration, as I have already told you. Of course, every coin has two sides, pros and cons. Let's talk about the pros and cons of open source software. Pro is, of course, that is democratic, empowering, intellectually empowering, and inclusive. It speeds up the delivery system. As soon as something happens, if the author, suppose I'm the author and I might not be in a position to edit my encyclopedia. Somebody else who has seen that incident happening or gets hold of the news of the incident, they can edit it. So what happens? That it is time speeds up the delivery. Range of expertise. Not only one, but many people can contribute to Wikipedia. That means many people can bring their expertise to the table. Cons, the same thing, can become a cons. Not always reliable because not a lot of research has taken place into the editing. What happens? It might not be authentic. I remember one student asking me, ma'am, only 4 countries are shown by Wikipedia as in the Horn of Africa. But actually, there are more than 4 countries. How do I know it? Because, of course, I went to the official page of Horn of Africa Initiative. So this is an example. Don't rely on it blindlessly. All right. It may lead to chaotic situations like it has right now around Arshdeep Singh's page. If you write misleading information, and many people might not know that Wikipedia is an open source software, they will think that this is true. And this can give rise to unnecessary sentiments. Undermines thorough research. An author who has researched a lot on some subject, if other person comes along and writes something else, generates a content which is not well researched, then it also undermines my research. Suppose I'm the author, it will undermine my hard work. So these are the kind of pros and cons. Moving ahead, what is the major criticism of Wikipedia? Now understand that whoever the individuals who are generating content on Wikipedia are not employed by Wikipedia. They are not like full-time or part-time workers in Wikipedia. They are just doing it by volunteering, right? So they gain designation and exercise attendant right through community review process. People who are holding the post of administrator or good post with respect to editing, they get that post because there is an editing responsibility along the community. Suppose X number of people are there and this person has given a lot of information which is authentic in nature. So they can become an administrator and they can be, they can get a lot of respect with respect to editing technicalities in the page. So this is through the community review process. There is no any sort of interview or any sort of examination to become an administrator. So they are not given or removed from a particular designation by Wikimedia Foundation per se. They can acknowledge the person to be a bureaucrat or an administrator in Wikimedia, but it is not a paid job, right? Moving ahead, let us talk about the accountability. First of all, we need to understand over here, according to Wikimedia Foundation, which is operating this page, says that it generally does not contribute, monitor, or delete content. This is the general statement that they have put. But there are two things that we have to keep in mind over here. The Wikimedia Foundation legally controls the servers on which Wikipedia's content is hosted. First, that means if they are not accountable or they are not responsible for the content that is being generated, they are accountable for the working of the Wikipedia page. First that. Secondly, Wikimedia Foundation also exercise control on who the system administrator of the Wikipedia are. So this point is very important. If any foundation is having a control on who the system administrators are, they have the power to control the content over that page as well. If they recognize a person as a system administrator, they are having an indirect control over the content. How? Because system administrators, they have the power to block a user. They also have the power to, reverse back any edit that has taken place on the Wikipedia page. So if they have a power over the acknowledgement of the administrator or system administrator, they have a power on the content as well. Moving ahead, can the Wikimedia Foundation be held responsible for the content Wikipedia hosts? First thing, very clear. There has been an instance earlier as well. That is why we know this. Settled position has not been arrived at yet. Is Wikimedia really responsible or not? Because it works as an intermediary like Twitter and Facebook. It provides a platform for content generation, but at the same time, it does not have the responsibility of what is the content. So intermediaries on that notion only are afforded immunity. In India, it's the safe harbor clause in the IT Act. Moving ahead, now precedents which have been set earlier, let us look at that. There have been rulings that the Wikimedia Foundation does not own the content. They just own the intermediary platform. Does not have any legal responsibility for the content generated. But as I told you, they have the legal responsibility of the intermediary, but not the content. They are somewhere responsible. It can be held responsible for illegal content being hosted on Wikipedia. Apart from that legality, they also have a control over the system administrators who have the right to block a user or reverse the edit that has been done on the page, right? So this is a point. Moving ahead, content moderation practices are still there. We cannot just think that, okay, now Wikimedia is saying that we do not own the content. It's not on us. The responsibility or the onus is not on us to do content moderation. There is practice. First is edit rights and protected pages. Now, some pages which are highly vulnerable to distortion or highly, you can say, many trolls can occur on that page. Those pages are given the highest level of protection and they are known as protected pages. Okay, depends on the vulnerability of the page. The goal is to first only certain very authorized users are given the right to edit. So to increase liability and also to prevent vandalism and disruptive edits. Vandalism that has happened to Arshdeep Singh's page. Moving ahead, how does it happen? By classifying the users. Now this is on Wikipedia. Wikipedia classifies the users depend on the editing rights. So full protection for this page, for a page which is having full protection, users that have been given full edit rights can make the modification. Again, this is achieved through community review process. Semi-protection cannot be, these pages cannot be edited by unregistered users. So full edit rights, people have, those have full edit rights, and registered users can edit this page. And then there is pending changes. Then changes which are made in a page might not get reflected until and unless the designated editor, gives a go to that edit. So that is another level of protection. Remember this. And another one is for having accountability. Temporary or permanent protection to pages can also be given. How? Now, edit rights, because they are widespread, anybody can edit. This is the policy of Wikipedia. What happens that certain content disputes occur. Content disputes, if two editors or more than two editors are not agreeing to the information that is published on the page, they can edit it, and somebody else can come into the picture and say, no, this is not correct, and they can again re-edit it. So this is edit warring. Edit warring means these editors try to override the edit that has been earlier done. And because of this, edit warring can happen. Consumers are at a loss. I write something, that other person writes something else, then the other person deletes it and writes something else. This is edit warring. Administrators here can provide temporary or permanent protection to page to prevent edits. This is also one of the protection. Moving ahead. Now, here comes India. What can India do with respect to such disruptive information? First, we have to understand Section 79 of the Information Technology Act of 2000, which has the clause of safe harbor. Here it is said that if an intermediary is following the rules of a country, here it means India, then they can be given protection under the Section 79A, and this clause is safe harbor. That means no legal proceedings can take place against the intermediary for hosting that content, but the intermediary should follow the rules of India. Okay. So the Information Technology Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code in 2021, they came into the fore. Okay. So certain categories of information are not allowed according to these rules. That is patently false, untrue, and is written or published in any form with the intent to mislead, like in Arshdeep's case, or harass a person, entity, or agency for financial gain, or to cause any injury to that person. So this is what has been defined according to the rules. Now, another thing is that they can only have the safe harbor. First of all, they have to abide by the rules. Secondly, once Wikimedia Foundation has the actual knowledge of such content being hosted on its platform, it would be held responsible for the same. If the agency gets the actual knowledge of such a misleading information, then it will be held responsible for legal proceedings. Now, IT Rules 2021, they define actual knowledge as how. Let me show you through an example. When the agency gets the information from the designated or authorized agency of a nation that this disruptive information is there on your platform, this is known as actual information according to the rules of 2021. And Wikimedia did get, this is from Twitter, Wikimedia did get the information from the government agency in India that Arshdeep's page has misleading information. So actual information has been given. Now, if Wikipedia does not take actions against it, although the untrue statements were taken out, that was also acknowledged. But if some sort of things do happen again in the future, what can India do apart from that? Now, in 2020, Aksai Chin was shown in the map of China. One map was there, in which it hurt the integrity and sovereignty of India. Indian government said that we are going to use Section 69A of the Information Technology Act of 2000 if you do not take that map out. So now what happened? Now, if the government did use Section 69A of the Information Technology Act, then it would have led to Wikipedia being blocked from rendering its services in India. And no intermediary platform wants to leave India. The digital penetration is such. Wikimedia Foundation to this incident said that Wikipedia volunteer editors had taken the note of the grievance and they are settling it. Okay, so this is the thing. Apart from that, there are certain countries that have earlier banned or that have still banned Wikipedia, the functioning of Wikipedia in their countries. China is one such country, Turkey is one such country, Venezuela as well as Russia. So India wouldn't have been first. Now answer this question. This is for your mains examination. Discuss the section 79A of the Information Technology Act 2000 while shedding a light upon the challenges associated with open source encyclopedia. Okay, answer it, try to practice it. I hope you like this segment. Any constructive feedback if you have for us, do comment in the comment segment. Thank you so much for watching.